She is the most boring woman I have ever loved. That is what he told his friends the night he asked her for an open marriage. He said it with a glass in his hand and a smile on his face, like he was giving himself permission to breathe. Like she was the thing suffocating him. He had no idea that within 3 months she would be standing beside the most dangerous man in the city. And he would be begging her to come home. But she would not even look at him. Not once. Before we go any further, if you love emotional, intense stories like this one, subscribe to the channel right now because what happens next will stay with you long after this video ends. It started on a Wednesday, the kind of ordinary, forgettable Wednesday that changes everything. Marin Solovich sat across from her husband in their dining room. The table was long, expensive, and unnecessary for two people. But that was Dorian. Everything he owned had to look like more than it was. He set his fork down slowly and looked at her the way someone looks at furniture they have outgrown. Marin, we need to talk. She already knew. Not the words. The feeling. That cold, practiced distance he had been building for months. She folded her hands in her lap. Okay. He leaned back. I think we should open our marriage. The words hit the air and just floated there. She did not gasp. She did not cry. She blinked once, slowly, and then looked at him the way you look at a door you always knew would close. Open it how? He smiled. That was the worst part. He smiled like this was a gift. I think we have both been settling. I think we deserve to explore what else is out there. What he meant was, he had already found someone else. What he meant was, he wanted permission to stop pretending. And what he did not realize was that by opening that door, he was not setting himself free. He was setting her free. And that would cost him everything. Marin did not argue. She did not beg. She sat there, still, quiet, the way she always was, and said one word, fine. Dorian blinked. He had prepared for tears, for questions, for resistance. He had rehearsed his reasons, his justifications, his carefully worded explanations about emotional growth and evolving needs. He had not prepared for fine. You are sure? She looked at him and something behind her eyes shifted. Something he had never seen before, or maybe something he had never bothered to look for. I said, fine, Dorian. Is there anything else? He stared at her for a long time, and for the first time in years he felt something he could not name, not guilt, not relief, something worse, doubt. But he buried it, the way he always did. Good. He stood up. I think this will be healthy for both of us. She did not respond. She just watched him walk away. And in that silence, something inside her did not break. It woke up. But neither of them knew yet what that meant. And when they did, it would be far too late. 3 weeks passed. Dorian was already spending nights elsewhere. He came home smelling like someone else's perfume and acted like it was cologne. Marin said nothing. She cooked. She cleaned. She existed in the spaces he left behind like a ghost haunting her own life. But something was shifting. Not outside. Inside. She had started going out. Not to bars, not to clubs. To a small restaurant on the east side of the city called Vela. It was quiet. Hidden. The kind of place you only found if someone told you about it. Her coworker Sable had mentioned it once. You need to get out of that house, Marin. Just go sit somewhere that is not his. So she did. She went alone. She sat at a corner table with a glass of wine she barely touched and a book she barely read. But she breathed. Finally, after months, she breathed. The third visit changed everything. She arrived late, almost 9 in the evening. The restaurant was nearly empty. Candles flickered on white tablecloths. Music played so softly it felt like memory. She sat in her usual corner and opened her book. And then a voice came from behind her. That book. She flinched, turned. A man stood there. Still. like he had been watching her for longer than she realized. It is a sad choice for someone who already looks like she is carrying enough. Her pulse jumped. Excuse me? He did not smile. He did not soften. He simply looked at her the way no one had looked at her in years, like she was not invisible. I am Kazim Velier, and you have been sitting in my restaurant 3 times without ordering a full meal. That is either poverty or heartbreak. Which one? She stared at him. Tall, dark hair cut close, sharp jaw, eyes that looked like they had seen things most people only read about. Black shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled to the forearms. He looked expensive, but not in the way Dorian did. Dorian looked like money. This man looked like power, something far more dangerous. She swallowed. Heartbreak. She did not know why she said it. She never said things like that. Not to strangers, not to anyone. But something about his stillness, his directness, the way he asked without pretending to care while clearly caring, it pulled the truth out of her like gravity. He studied her for a moment, then pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. Good. Liars bore me, and something she had forgotten existed stirred back to life. Seen. Not watched. Not monitored. Not evaluated. Seen. But she had no idea who she was sitting across from, and when she found out, everything she thought she knew about safety and danger and love would collapse completely. He did not flirt with her that night. He asked real questions. What do you do when you are not here? She hesitated. I work at an architecture firm. Designing? No. Drafting? Other people's designs. Why not your own? Because no one asked. He leaned back slightly. That is not a reason. That is an excuse. Her jaw tightened. You do not know me. No. But I know that look. I have seen it in mirrors. The night ended without anything dramatic. No exchange of numbers, no promises. He simply stood when she stood, looked at her once more and said, "Come back." Not a question. Not quite an order. Somewhere between an invitation and a dare. And she knew, standing there with her coat half on and her heart doing something it had not done in years, that she would. She absolutely would. But what terrified her was what she did not yet know. Kazim Velier was not just a restaurant owner. He was the head of the Velier family, a name that controlled half the city's underworld, a man whose enemies disappeared and whose allies feared him more than they trusted him. And he had just noticed her. In his world, that was either a blessing or a death sentence. And no one, not even Kazim himself, knew which one it would be. She went back the next evening. And the evening after that. Each time, Kazim appeared. Not immediately, not eagerly. He arrived like weather, inevitable, unrushed. They talked about food, about buildings she admired, about a city neither of them fully belonged to. But every conversation peeled something back. Every silence between words carried weight. On the 4th night, he said something that lodged itself inside her chest. You speak about yourself like you are describing someone who is not in the room. She froze. You say things like, I used to want, or I would have been. His eyes held hers, as if the version of you that mattered already left. Her throat tightened. Maybe she did. No. Voice was low, certain. She is sitting right here. She does not know it yet. Marin looked away because if she held his gaze any longer, something would crack. And she was not ready for that. But the cracks were already forming, and someone else had already noticed. Meanwhile, Dorian had started to feel something he did not expect. Irritation. Not jealousy. Not yet. But a low, simmering discomfort that his wife, the boring one, the predictable one, the one he had mentally filed under safe, was suddenly not home when he came back. The first time, he assumed she was at the store. The second time, he checked his phone. The third time, he actually called her. "Where are you?" "Out." "Out where?" "Just out, Dorian." A long silence because that tone was new. She had never spoken to him with that kind of calm detachment. That was his move. That was his language. And hearing it from her felt like watching someone try on his clothes and fit them better. "Since when do you go out?" She almost laughed. "Since you told me to?" He opened his mouth, then closed it, because she was right, and he hated it. When she came home that night, she was different. Not visibly, not dramatically. But there was something behind her eyes that had not been there before. A quiet steadiness, like the ground beneath her had shifted, and she had found her balance on the new surface instead of falling. Dorian watched her from the hallway, and for the first time since the open marriage, he felt something cold settle in his stomach. But he dismissed it. She was Marin. She was safe. She would always be there. He was wrong. He just did not know it yet. The fifth night at Vela, Marin arrived and the waiter led her to a private section, curtained, candlelit. She stepped through and there was Kazim, already seated. But he was not alone. Across from him sat a woman. Tall, striking black hair pinned back with surgical precision. Her posture was controlled, the way a blade rests in a sheath. The woman turned and looked at Marin without a flicker of expression. That was worse than hostility. Kazim stood. "Marin, this is Inessa Brevik." Inessa did not extend her hand. She simply measured, catalogued, then smiled. "Barely. So this is your new project." Kazim's jaw tightened. "That is not what this is." Inessa stood slowly, walked toward Marin and leaned in just enough for her voice to drop. "You seem lovely. But lovely does not last long in his world." She straightened, glanced back at Kazim with something between amusement and warning, and left. Marin sat down slowly. "Tell me what I am walking into. A demand, not a request." And Kazim Velior looked at her with something that almost resembled surprise, because no one demanded things from him, but she just had. And instead of anger, he felt something far more inconvenient. Respect. "I am not a safe man, Marin. Everything around me carries risk. And you sitting here, coming back, night after night, that has already been noticed by people who watch everything I do." Her blood cooled. And by Inessa, who believes she is the only woman permitted in my orbit. Marin's chest tightened. And is she? Something in his expression broke open for just a fraction of a second. Raw, unguarded, gone almost instantly. She was. Silence. "But that was before you sat in my restaurant with a book about grief and ordered nothing but wine." And Marin understood two things. She was falling into something she could not control, and someone was already trying to make sure she did not survive it. But she stayed, because the truth, even when it was terrifying, felt better than the beautiful lies she had been living in for years. That same night, Kazim made a call. The woman, Marin Solovic. Find out everything. How far back? As far as it goes. You think she is a problem? Kazim looked out at the city lights. I think she is something worse than a problem. I think she is honest, and honest people were the ones who could not be predicted, could not be controlled, could not be kept at a distance. He had built his entire world on distance. And now someone had walked through it without even trying. He told himself it was caution, but standing there alone in the dark, he already knew the truth. This was the beginning of something he could not stop. And the part that disturbed him most was that he was not sure he wanted to. 2 weeks in, Marin stopped pretending this was casual. She stopped pretending the way her chest tightened every time Kazim entered a room was something she could explain away as curiosity. It was not curiosity. It was gravity. And it was pulling her somewhere she had never been before. Kazim had asked her to come earlier than usual, not to the dining room, to the back. She hesitated at the kitchen entrance. This feels different. It is. The kitchen was empty. No staff. No noise. Just space and silence and the smell of something being prepared slowly. You cook? He glanced at her sideways. You sound surprised. There are many things about me you do not expect. That is intentional. She watched him move through the kitchen the way she watched architects move through blueprints. With precision. With instinct. With something deeply personal hidden inside something technical. He was making something simple. Pasta. Fresh, hand-rolled, deliberate. Every movement controlled but not rigid. Practiced, but not rehearsed. She sat on a stool near the counter and watched his hands work the dough. And the silence between them, usually weighted with tension, turned warm. Why pasta? Because it is honest. You cannot hide behind pasta. No sauces complex enough to cover mistakes. No presentation elaborate enough to distract. It is just dough, water, salt, and time. And if any of those are wrong, you taste it immediately. She stared at him because that was not about pasta. That was about everything. They ate at the steel counter. No tablecloths, no candles, no performance. This is perfect. He looked at her. No, it is not. The salt is slightly off. She tasted again. He was right. But I did not notice. Because you are not looking for flaws. Most people do not. Is that what you do? Look for flaws? I look for truth. Flaws are just the honest parts people try to hide. Something inside her chest opened, like a window that had been painted shut for years finally giving way to air. She looked down because her eyes were burning and she refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of him. But he saw it anyway. You do not have to hold everything together in this room. She swallowed hard. I do not know how to do anything else. Then learn. Starting now. She looked up and did not try to hide what she was feeling. The sadness, the loneliness, the years of being someone else's background noise. She let it sit there, visible and exposed, and he did not look away. He did not flinch. He did not try to fix it. He just saw it. And that was the moment something irreversible happened. Not a kiss. Not a touch. Something more dangerous. Trust. And in his world, trust was either the strongest armor or the fastest way to die. When she left, Kazim's right hand, a man named Torve, appeared beside him. The background check came back. She is clean. Ordinary. But there is something else. Her maiden name. It is Hadesi. Something shifted in Kazim's expression, barely visible, but Torve recognized it. You know that name. That name is not ordinary. Find out if she knows. Knows what? Everything. He turned and walked back into the darkness of the kitchen alone. Because the honest woman at his counter might not be as simple as she appeared, and if she was connected to what he thought she was connected to, then this was no longer just attraction. This was something far more complicated and far more dangerous. It happened at the Meridian, the most exclusive gathering in the city, a charity event in name, a power display in truth. Every family, every alliance, every unspoken agreement in the city's underworld was represented under crystal chandeliers and polite conversation. Kazim attended every year. But this year, he did something he had never done before. He brought someone. Marin borrowed a dress from Sable. Deep green, simple, elegant. She felt out of place the moment she stepped out of the car. Kazim was waiting at the entrance. Black suit. No tie. The only man there who looked like he did not need to impress anyone. And when he saw her, he stopped. Not paused. Stopped. Like the world around him briefly ceased to matter. You look different. She tensed. Bad different? No. And the way he said it, low, without pretense, almost involuntary, told her everything that single word could not. Inside, the room was full. Men in dark suits, women in gowns that cost more than Marin made in a year, laughter that did not reach eyes, conversations that were negotiations wearing masks. She felt every glance, every assessment, every silent question about who she was and why she was there. Kazim walked beside her, not touching, but close enough that the proximity itself was a statement. A man approached, older, silver hair, smile like a closed fist. And who is this? His eyes moved to Marin, hungry, not romantic, predatory. She is with me. 3 words, no name given, no explanation offered. And the tone made the older man's smile tighten just enough to show he understood. She is with me, meant do not ask again. It meant boundaries had been drawn and crossing them would be unwise. In Kazim Velior's world, that phrase was a shield and a target, both at the same time. Later, she was standing near the bar alone. A man appeared beside her, young, expensive watch, smile that felt rehearsed. You must be the new one. He reached out and touched her arm, possessively, like she was an object left unattended. Before his fingers fully closed around her wrist, Kazim's hand appeared. The grip was precise, controlled. But the pressure behind it was something else entirely. The young man's smile vanished. Kazim spoke quietly, so quietly that Marin almost did not hear it, but the young man heard it. And the color drained from his face. You touched her. Now apologize. And the room noticed. Enough conversations paused. Enough eyes landed on the scene. The young man swallowed. I am sorry. Kazim released him slowly, then looked at Marin. And in his eyes there was something she had not seen before. Not anger, not possessiveness, fear. The kind that comes from realizing you care about something in a world designed to destroy everything you care about. In the car, silence. Finally, she spoke. You did not have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Because no one touches you. Not while I am in the room. And what about when you are not in the room? He turned, his eyes finding hers in the dark. Then I will make sure I am always in the room. Her heart stopped. That was not protection. That was devotion. And devotion from a man like Kazim Velior was the most dangerous thing she had ever been offered. 2 days later, Marin noticed a car outside her office. Black, tinted windows, engine running. That night, she told Kazim. His hand tightened around his glass until his knuckles whitened. It is Inessa. That is how she operates. She does not attack directly. She circles. She watches. She waits for you to feel safe. And then she strikes. What does she want? She wants you gone. And she does not care how. 3 days later, Marin was walking home from Vela. She had refused Kazim's offer to have someone drive her. I have been walking alone my whole life. Kazim? I am not going to stop because of a parked car. He had looked at her with something between admiration and frustration. That stubbornness. It will be the thing that saves you or destroys you. She was 2 blocks from her apartment when the footsteps started. Behind her, matching her pace. She sped up. They sped up. Her heart climbed into her throat. She turned a corner. A figure stepped out from a doorway, blocking her path. Tall, silent, face half hidden by shadow. She stopped. Her breath came fast. Her keys were in her hand, knuckles tight. And then a second figure appeared behind her. 2 of them. Coordinated, deliberate. This was arranged. One of them spoke. Mrs. Solovic. The use of her married name hit her like ice water. We have a message. Leave. Leave the restaurant. Leave the man. Leave this entire part of the city, and do not come back. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was not. And if I do not, then we come back. and we do not bring a message. But something inside her, something that had woken up in a dining room when her husband asked for an open marriage, that something did not fold. It straightened. Tell Inessa that I received her message. I am not leaving. The man blinked. Your choice. And they disappeared into the dark. She called Kazim. 2 rings. Marin? She closed her eyes. They came. Silence on the other end. The silence of a man whose entire body had just gone still with something far beyond anger. Do not move. 12 minutes. That is how long it took before a black car pulled up and Kazim stepped out. Not his driver, not his men. Him. He crossed the street in 4 strides and stopped in front of her. His eyes scanned her face, her hands, her body. Looking for damage. She shook her head slightly. They did not touch me. His jaw was so tight she could see the muscle pulsing beneath the skin. They will wish they had, because what I am going to do to them will be worse for having waited. His voice was not loud. It was barely above a whisper. And that was what made it terrifying. Something broke open between them. Not romance, not passion. Something rawer. She had been threatened because of him. And instead of running, she had called him, and he had come, not with an army, alone. And in that moment, standing on a dark sidewalk in a city that was trying to swallow her whole, Marin understood something with devastating clarity. She was not just falling for Kazim Velior. She had already fallen, and the ground she landed on was made of fire. But Inessa Breivik did not send warnings she did not intend to follow through on. And the next move would not come at Marin from the shadows. It would come at her in broad daylight. At the one place she thought she was still safe. And it would strip away the last piece of the life she had built before any of this began. Inessa's next move was surgical. She did not go after Marin's body. She went after her livelihood. Marin arrived at her architecture firm to find her desk cleared. Not reorganized. Cleared. Her supervisor stood in the doorway with an expression that tried to look apologetic, but landed somewhere closer to afraid. We received a call. A significant client raised concerns about your personal associations. She looked at him, disbelief hardening into something colder. She had worked there for 6 years, 6 years of drafting other people's visions, of being reliable, invisible, and excellent in ways no one ever acknowledged. And now, a single phone call from someone she had never met had erased all of it. You are firing me because someone told you to, and you did not even ask why. He opened his mouth. She did not wait for the answer. She picked up the one personal item left on her desk, a framed photograph of a building she had designed in graduate school that was never built, and walked out. She did not cry in the elevator. She did not cry on the street. She cried in the bathroom of a coffee shop 4 blocks away, sitting on the floor with her back against the locked door, her chest heaving. Because this was not just a job. This was the last piece of her old life, the last thing that was hers before Dorian, before Kazim, before any of this. And now it was gone. Taken. Not by chance. By design. That evening, she sat on the kitchen floor of her apartment. Dorian walked in. He stopped when he saw her. What are you doing? I lost my job. He set his takeout down. What happened? She almost told him. But the bone-deep tiredness of explaining yourself to someone who never really listened stopped her. It does not matter. He frowned. Of course it matters. Are you okay? No. And she realized with a clarity that felt like a blade that this was the most present he had been in months. It took her falling apart for him to stand still. She looked at him. You asked me once if I was sure about the open marriage. He stiffened. I was not sure then. I am now. His face changed. Marin, what does that mean? It means I am done waiting for you to see me, Dorian. Someone else already has. And in that silence, Dorian Solovic felt the ground crack beneath him. Not because she was leaving, because she had already left. He just had not noticed. That same night, Kazim found her on a bench outside the architecture building. They took your job. Inessa. He sat beside her. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel. I cannot do this. I cannot keep standing in the middle of your world while it tears mine apart. Every time I get closer to you, I lose something. My safety. My job. What is left after? There is nothing left to take. He looked at her, and every answer he could give was either a lie or a confession. I will get your job back. I do not want my job back. I want to know why I am worth this to you, because you do not need me. Everyone around me needs something. Money, protection, access, power. You sat in my restaurant and asked for nothing. You walked into my world with nothing to gain and nothing to lose. I cannot buy your loyalty. I cannot threaten your obedience. I cannot control your presence. You are here because you choose to be. And if you leave, I cannot stop you. And that is why you matter. She felt something she had not felt since before Dorian. Since before she learned to make herself small to fit inside someone else's comfort. She felt powerful. Not his kind of power. Hers. She did not leave that bench. But what neither of them knew was that across the city someone else had been watching. Not Inessa. Someone worse. Someone Kazim had kept buried for years. And he wanted to take the thing Kazim loved. And now he knew exactly what that was. His name was Riven Kasparo, and he did not arrive. He emerged. Like something that had been waiting underground, patient, coiled, listening for the right moment. Kazim got the call at 3 a.m. Boss. Torve's voice was careful. Kasparo is in the city. Private charter. No announcement. Where? The Adderley. Neutral ground. A hotel that belonged to no family. Staying there was a message. I am not here to take sides. I am here to take what I want. What do we know? Only one thing. He asked about the woman. Marin woke the next morning to Torve at her door. Stiff, formal, uncomfortable. Mrs. Solovic, it is not Mrs. anymore. Not really. He blinked. Noted. Kazim needs to see you. Now. Something about the way he said now made her chest tighten. Not the usual kind of urgency. This was different. Heavier. She dressed. Followed him downstairs. Got into a car she did not recognize. 20 minutes later, she was standing inside a building she had never seen. Concrete. Steel. Surveillance cameras at every corner. The air tasted like caution. She was led through a corridor and into a room where Kazim stood with his back to her, staring at a wall covered in photographs. Names, connections. Red lines linking faces she did not recognize. She had never seen him afraid. Not until now. There is someone you need to know about. Riven Kasparo. He was my partner. Everything partner. 15 years ago, we built this together. The network. The alliances. All of it. Then he betrayed me, and I dismantled everything he had. He disappeared. And now? Now he is back. And he is asking about you. Why? Because he does not want to destroy me, Marin. He wants to take the thing that matters most. And somehow, he already knows what that is. She was a target in a war she did not start, did not understand, and could not escape. I need you to stay here. This building. My compound. Her eyes locked onto his. You want to lock me away. I want to keep you alive. She felt the walls closing in. Not physically. Emotionally. Because this was the thing she feared most. Not danger. Captivity. Being put somewhere by a man who decided it was for her own good. Dorian had done that for years. Just with nicer furniture. I will not be caged, Kazim. Not by anyone. Not even by you. He looked at her, and in that moment, the tension between them was a living thing, breathing, expanding, neither of them willing to give ground. Then do not call it a cage. His voice softened. Call it my home. That word. Home. He had never used it before. Not about any place. Not about anything. And the fact that he used it now, in this moment, changed the shape of what he was asking. He was not locking her away. He was letting her in, into the one place he had never let anyone. She did not answer immediately. She looked at the wall of photographs behind him, the red lines, the names, the architecture of a war that had been building for 15 years. And she understood something. This was not about protection. This was about trust. He was showing her the machine, the mess, the truth of what he was. And he was asking her to stay anyway. Fine. She said it the same way she had said it to Dorian months ago. One word. But this time, it meant the opposite. With Dorian, fine meant surrender. With Kazim, fine meant choice. And that difference was everything. Meanwhile, Dorian was spiraling. He had not heard from Maren in 4 days. Her phone went to voicemail. Her apartment was empty. Her office said she no longer worked there. He stood in their living room surrounded by everything he had bought to prove he was successful, and none of it meant anything. Because the one thing he had not bought, the one thing that had been given to him freely, was gone, and he had thrown it away with a smile. He picked up his phone, called her again. Voicemail. Maren, it is me. I made a mistake. Please come home. He hung up, and the silence that followed was the loudest sound he had ever heard. But she would never hear that message, because by then she was already inside the walls of a world Dorian could not imagine. And the man she was with was about to face something that would test everything he had ever been, because caring about someone in his world was not a luxury, it was a liability, and liabilities had a way of becoming casualties. The deeper investigation arrived 3 days later. Torve placed it on the desk. Kazim read the first page, then the second. By the third, his hands had gone still. Her maiden name, Hadesi. It is real. Her mother was Seraphine Hadesi, younger sister of Nikau Hadesi, the same Nikau Hadesi who controlled the northern trade corridor for over 20 years, the same Nikau Hadesi who was assassinated by Riven Kasparo. Does she know? Seraphine fled with the girl when Maren was 4, changed their names, relocated 3 times. Seraphine died when Maren was 11. Officially, a car accident. Unofficially, the brake lines. Maren was raised by the state, aged out of foster care, put herself through school, married young. She does not know who her family was. She does not know what she is. Maren Hadesi was the last surviving heir of a bloodline that Kasparo had spent years erasing. She was not just a target. She was a key to a kingdom she did not know existed. He found her in the kitchen of the compound. She had started cooking there without asking. Not for him, for herself. It was the only thing that kept her hands steady and her mind quiet. She was making something simple. Bread, just flour, water, salt, and thyme. The same ingredients he had described months ago in his own kitchen. When he walked in, she did not turn. But she spoke. You found something. It was not a question. Yes. She kept kneading. And you do not know how to tell me. He stopped. Because she was right. For the first time in his life, Kazim did not know how to deliver information, not because it was complicated, because it was hers. And once he gave it to her, it would change who she was. Permanently. Your mother's name was Seraphine Hadesi. She was not who you think she was. She was part of a powerful family. They controlled territories across the northern part of the city for decades. Your uncle was Nikau Hadesi. He was killed when you were young. Your mother ran, changed your names, hid you. She raised you invisible on purpose because if anyone found out who you were, they would come for you. And when she died, the erasure became permanent. You grew up without knowing who you were, because that was the only way to keep you alive. Tears rolled down her face. She did not wipe them. She stood there, hands trembling at her sides, flour on her arms, bread abandoned on the counter, and she looked at him with an expression that broke something inside his chest. Not grief, not shock, recognition. Like a door she had always known was there had finally been kicked open. I always knew something was missing. Voice cracked. Not a memory. Not a fact. A feeling. Like I was built for something I could not see. Like pieces of me were hidden somewhere I could not reach. And the man who is here now, Kasparo. He is the one who killed your uncle. Her face changed. Not softer. Harder. Something ancient moved behind her eyes. Something inherited. Something that had survived foster care and a loveless marriage and years of being invisible because it was waiting for this exact moment to wake up. He killed my family? Yes. And now he is here for me? Yes. She wiped her hands slowly, deliberately. Then he made a mistake. Voice was low, steady, lethal in its calm. Because I am not hiding anymore. Kazim stared at her. Because this was the moment he realized he had not saved her. He had woken her up. And the woman standing in front of him now was not someone who needed saving. She was someone who needed a war, and she had just found one. That night, neither of them slept. They sat in his study, the file spread across the desk between them, and she read everything. Every page, every name, every date, every death. She did not flinch. She did not look away. She consumed it the way fire consumes oxygen, quietly, completely. When she finished, she sat back. Her face was unreadable. My uncle built all of this, and Kasparo tore it down, and my mother ran because she could not fight him. And you dismantled Kasparo afterward, took his empire apart the way he took apart my family's. I did not know the connection then. Would it have mattered if you did? No. She nodded slowly. He had not fought Kasparo to avenge her family. He had fought him because Kasparo betrayed him. The justice for her bloodline was accidental. And yet, here they were, tangled in the wreckage of the same history from opposite sides. She walked to the window. The city glowed beneath them. Quiet from this height. Deceptive. I should leave. He did not move. Where? Anywhere. She turned. You have spent your entire life managing threats, controlling outcomes, building walls. I am not a wall, Kazim. I am a crack in every wall you have. The words landed like a fist in still water. And she was right. Every strategist in his world would tell him to let her go, to remove the vulnerability, to close the gap she had opened in his armor and seal it with distance. He stood slowly. Yes, you are. She blinked, because she expected him to deny it. You are the most dangerous thing that has ever happened to me, not Kasparo, not Inessa, not any enemy I have ever faced. You, because I have spent my entire life making sure nothing could reach me, and you reached me without even trying. That is not a reason to stay. It is the only reason that matters. He walked toward her. I have been many things, Marin. A leader, a threat, a necessary evil. But I have never been someone who felt the absence of another person like a wound. Until you. Tears streamed down her face, the kind that come from a place so deep you did not know it existed until someone found it. You cannot say things like that to me. Why? Because I will believe you. His hand reached for hers. Slowly, not grabbing, offering. Then believe me. Their fingers touched. And in that contact something sealed. Not a promise, not a vow, a choice. Two people choosing each other in a world designed to keep them apart. and just as the distance between them collapsed, a sound shattered the silence. An explosion. Distant, but massive. The windows rattled. The floor vibrated. His phone rang within seconds. Boss. Vela. It is gone. Incendiary. Professional. Timed for when it was empty. She grabbed his arm. This is Kasparo. Yes. And he is telling you he knows where I have been. Then we stop hiding. And we stop running. Together? She said it first. And Kazim Velior did not answer with words. He answered with a single nod. Heavy with everything he could not say. And in that nod, both of them understood that what came next would either destroy them or forge them into something unbreakable. There was no middle ground anymore. Kazim moved within hours, not with anger, with architecture. He built the response the way Marin designed buildings. Precision, structure, every element serving a purpose. But Marin did something no one expected. She walked into his war room, stood beside his men, and spoke. I know the northern corridors, the routes my uncle built. I have been dreaming about them since I was a child. I thought they were nightmares, memory fragments of places I could not name. They are not nightmares. They are maps. Torve shifted. That is not possible. She turned to him. I remember enough. Roads that curve east before doubling back. Warehouses near a river crossing with 3 access points. A tunnel system beneath a district that does not appear on any city record. Silence. Every detail confirmed. Every route accurate. Encoded in a child's memory. Hidden inside dreams she had carried for over 20 years without understanding what they were. Kazim stared at her. And he saw her fully. Not the woman who sat in his restaurant reading a book about grief. Not the woman he had shielded from Inessa. Not the woman who cooked bread in his kitchen while the world burned around her. The Hadesi heir. Standing in a room full of dangerous men. Holding ground. Not asking for permission. Just standing there. Being exactly who she had always been without knowing it. They moved that night. Kazim took the southern approach. Marin guided them through the northern passages, the ones only she could navigate. The ones Kasparo thought no longer existed, because the only person who remembered them was supposed to be dead. They found him at the Adderley. Riven Kasparo sat in the penthouse suite with a glass of wine and a smile carved from something sharp. When he saw Marin, the smile deepened. There she is. The ghost I could not quite kill. Kazim stepped forward, but Marin moved first. You killed my uncle. I removed an obstacle. You murdered my mother. Collateral damage. The casualness should have broken her. 3 months ago, it would have. But 3 months ago, she was a different woman. A woman who sat in silence while her husband called her boring. A woman who drafted other people's designs because no one asked for hers. That woman was gone. She stepped closer. My name is Marin Hadesi. Kasparo's smile twitched. Because names in this world were not labels, they were claims. Every debt owed to my family. Every alliance broken by your hands. Every territory you stole. I am here to collect. Kasparo looked at her. Then at Kazim, standing beside her. Not in front. Not above. Beside. You cannot reclaim what no longer exists. She lifted her chin. Watch me. And that was the moment Riven Kasparo realized his most fundamental error. He had assumed the Hadesi line was dead. He had assumed Marin Solovich was no one. He had assumed that a woman raised invisible would stay invisible. He was wrong about all of it. And by the time he understood that, it was already too late. The aftermath was not clean. It never is. Kasparo was detained by the families, the network of alliances that Marin's claim had reactivated like a dormant circuit. Old debts resurfaced, old loyalties rekindled, not all of them. But enough. Enough to shift the balance, enough to prove that erasure is not the same as death. Some things survive, some bloodlines endure. Some women refuse to disappear. Inessa vanished quietly. The way people disappear when they realize the person they were trying to destroy has become more powerful than the person they were trying to impress. She simply stopped being relevant. And in a world built on relevance, that was the cruelest fate of all. And Dorian, he showed up 3 weeks later. He had heard through Sable where Maren had been spending her time. He found her at Vela, rebuilt, stronger, like the woman who stood inside it. He walked in, looking the way men look when they realize they have made a mistake they cannot undo. Smaller, uncertain, Maren. She turned, and when she saw him, she did not feel anger. She felt something quieter, almost compassion, but not enough to change anything. I want to talk. We talked. 3 months ago. You said you wanted to explore what else was out there. I was wrong. No. You were honest. For the first time. You were bored. You wanted more. And you assumed I would wait while you found it. I did not think you would leave. I did not leave. You opened the door, Dorian. I just walked through it. The silence between them was not heavy. It was final. He did the only thing left. He left. And when the door closed behind him, Maren did not look up. Not because she was cold, because she had already grieved that door a long time ago. That evening, Kazim found her on the roof of Vela, the new roof, built with better bones. She was looking at the city in the open air. Wind in her hair, ground beneath her feet. You could walk away from all of it. The name, the legacy, the territories. You could disappear again. Design buildings no one will ever see. Live small. Is that what you want? No. Then what do you want? I want you to stay. As what? Not as someone I protect. Not as someone I shield from the world. As someone who stands in it with me. You are asking me to choose your world. No. I am asking you to let it be ours. Tears burned her eyes. That word. Ours. It was the word she had been waiting to hear her entire life. Not from Dorian, who used ours to mean mine, but from someone who meant it. If I stay, it has to be as someone you chose, not someone you rescued, not someone you found broken in a restaurant. I did not find you broken. I found you waiting. And I have been waiting too. I just did not know for what. Their hands met, and this time, neither of them let go. She smiled. Small. Rare. You know, the first time I sat in your restaurant, I almost did not come back. Why? Because you looked at me like you could see everything I was hiding. And now? Now I am not hiding anything. Good. Because I told myself, the night you first walked in, that if I ever found someone who could sit in silence with me and make the silence feel like enough, I would not let them go. And you meant it. I meant every word. And she believed him. Not because of what he said, because of what he had done. Every choice. Every risk. Every wall he had torn down to let her stand beside him instead of behind him. She looked out at the city. Their city now. She had walked into a restaurant 3 months ago as a woman whose husband called her boring. She was standing on a rooftop now as a woman who had reclaimed her name, her legacy, and her right to exist in the world without apology. Not because a man had saved her, because a man had seen her. And that was the difference. That was always the difference. She was not rescued. She was recognized. And in the end, that was what love actually was. Not saving someone from the dark, but standing beside them and saying, I see you. All of you. And I am not going anywhere. If this story moved you, subscribe now because the next one might be even more intense, and you do not want to miss it.